Hey Guy, today we will embark on a journey through the 12 geological eras on Earth. Surely you have seen many films related to them. For example, the famous animated film Ice Age, Jurassic World. So how have the geological eras changed? Listen to the entire story of this history to find out. If you like it, please like, share and subscribe to the channel to hear many more great stories. It was still the faintest dawn when we began our journey back to the origins of life, more than 540 million years ago, to the Cambrian period. That moment when Earth had not yet fully cooled after its violent geological upheavals. The air was still thick with steam and toxic gases from the submerged volcanoes of the ancient ocean, carrying a faint but oppressive scent of sulfur. Beneath the deep blue waters, a completely different world, where life was only just taking its first tentative steps onto the planet's stage, was welcoming the very first sunrise of complex life. Imagine yourself diving into the primordial sea. Around you everything is hazy under the dim light, filtering through murky water laced with geothermal bubbles. The seafloor is smooth and stretches out like an endless carpet, punctuated only occasionally by clusters of early coral. Soft limestone walls formed from the remains of single-celled organisms and siliceous algae. Somewhere, warm vents gush from fissures in the seabed, rich in silicon and calcium minerals. Nature's kiln, nurturing the growth of those primitive coral blooms, silently building the first reefs, which would later become the foundation for a rich and diverse ecosystem. And then suddenly you notice the gentle movement of a tiny creature passing before your eyes. It is shaped like a delicate flower, called Opabinia, with 5 lobes along each side of its body, and a long, tapered proboscis reaching forward, undulating like a root searching for prey. Under the faint light, its outer shell shimmers, reflecting a ghostly silver glow. Opabinia moves slowly, weaving through the soft sediment, probing for food with the tentacles at the tip of its proboscis, bacteria and organic particles drifting in the water. Not far away, the Anomalocaris, the unofficial king of the Cambrian period, glides by swiftly. Its body resembles a small boat nearly a metre long, with undulating flaps along its sides used to propel it through the sea. On its head are 2 enormous compound eyes, each made of thousands of individual lenses, allowing it to survey its surroundings with super-sensitive vision. Then come its 2 sharp frontal appendages, splayed wide and ready to snatch prey. Yet it is Anomalocaris itself that stands as the most vivid proof of the Cambrian evolutionary revolution. The progression from tiny, single-celled organisms to the first agile, ferocious predators. This period is also likened to the Cambrian Explosion. In just a brief 20-30 million years, a host of creatures with all manner of strange forms appeared simultaneously. Radiolarians with their bizarre, spongy, siliceous skeletons. Sponges with honeycomb-like porous structures. And early arthropods like trilobites. Creatures encased in hard shells covering their entire bodies, moving slowly with their bodies clearly divided into 3 segments. Some trilobites were as small as peas, while others reached several dozen centimetres in length, their dozens of thoracic segments curving rhythmically. Listen to the ocean's own breath, the gentle movement of water, punctuated by the clatter of hard-shelled animals striking the reef framework, and the rustle of trilobite swarms clinging to rocky outcrops to avoid strong currents. Everything seems to flow serenely, yet an uncompromising struggle for survival is unfolding. Predators hunt, while the hunted must flee or evolve thicker armour to defend themselves. On the soft seabed, dense mats of cyanobacteria wrap around the pebbles, forming lush green carpets where microorganisms gather and thrive. It is thanks to them that oxygen levels in the ocean and atmosphere began to rise, setting the stage for later evolutionary chapters. Though oxygen then was not as abundant as today, it was sufficient to fuel the first complex respiratory processes, marking a profound shift from inefficient unicellular respiration to more advanced gas exchange mechanisms. Occasionally, A faint shaft of sunlight filters through the murky water, illuminating a moss-covered rock and revealing the tiny scratch marks upon it. Evidence of a mutant creature, perhaps the precursor of insects or crustaceans that would move onto the land millions of years later. A thrill of excitement mixed with curiosity wells up within you as you realise that these fragments of fossilised shells, hundreds of millions of years hence, will be uncovered by a future generation and become the key to unlocking the secrets of the past. But before you lie still, the vivid tableau on the ancient seafloor. Columns of trilobites trailing one another, each individual undulating as it makes its way toward a sediment rich in nourishment. Soft strands of seaweed fan the water, creating gentle, graceful currents. Every passing moment holds the potential for a new discovery, a new species of crustacean, an unusual fossilized carapace, or a form of single-celled life capable of extraordinary photosynthesis. It is within this silent yet fierce realm that the Cambrian period etched the first pages in the history of complex life. From those earliest instants, when organisms first defended themselves with hard shells and evolved countless new forms, to the arrival of the first vicious predators, each chapter contributed to an epic that would still echo hundreds of millions of years later. Although today only scattered fossil traces remain, that journey lives on in the everlasting sediment. Can you feel it? It is the breath of time, slowly pausing and resuming its reign. The sound of moving water, the ghostly light, the strange shapes of primordial creatures, all intertwined to lull you into a gentle sleep, as if the earth itself were telling you an ancient story. Slow, meticulous, yet brimming with vitality. And when you close your eyes to relax, let the image of the Cambrian linger in your mind. The place where life was only just awakening, yet already promised countless wonders waiting to be explored. Sunlight glimmers through the crystal-clear seawater, painting shimmering streaks of light upon the soft coral reefs. We are drifting silently in the heart of the Ordovician Ocean, roughly 485 to 444 million years ago, when sea levels were at their highest in all of Earth's history. The wide open sea stretches endlessly, carrying a cool, salty breath, and the gentle lapping of waves as they brush against submerged rock ridges. Beneath the surface, the scene seems tranquil, but in truth it is more vibrant than ever. Look to the northeast. The first coral forests, Trapostum and Phasaloid species, sway in the currents. Their branches interlock, forming sponge-like castles that serve as homes to countless tiny creatures. Minute bryozoans, no larger than grains of sand, cling tightly to the coral walls, extending hundreds of delicate tentacles to filter bits of algae and bacteria from the flowing water. Gliding past are colonies of graptolites, organisms with a special carbon framework, resembling strings of dark pearls undulating against the deep blue backdrop. They float freely, drifting on the currents, creating faint shadowy trails. The gentle sway of the water makes them dance like black silken threads in the night. Each pearl on a graptolite string is a tiny individual, together forming a living tapestry that heralds an era of explosive biodiversity. Alongside them, ancient mollusks such as nautiloids and orthocones, the ancestors of modern squids and octopuses, are gliding leisurely by. Their long tapered spiral shells, clearly divided into chambers, allow them to maneuver with great agility. You can imagine hearing the rustle of water as they open their gas exchange valves, change direction, and expel small jets of water, like the very first biological engines beneath the ancient sea. Amid the coral reefs, trilobites continue their journey along the seabed. Compared to the Cambrian, Ordovician trilobites have thrived. Their shells are thicker, their body segments are more pronounced, and many species bear sharp spines for defense. They move in dense swarms, pressed against one another, blending into the submerged rock formations, sometimes leaving only a faint trail across the smooth sand. The mark of life hundreds of millions of years ago. Occasionally, small arthropods such as eurypterids, the predecessors of horseshoe crabs, emerge from rock crevices. Their bodies are long with paddle-like limbs that aid in swimming, though they sometimes crawl along the bottom in search of prey. The sight of their sharp claws lightly scraping the sand, accompanied by a soft rustling, creates the hushed melody of the Ordovician ocean. It is not only the underwater world that captivates. The coastal regions of the supercontinent Gondwana are gradually emerging. With a warm, humid climate, these shorelines are adorned with lush green mats of moss, the forerunners of the first land plants. Though they exist only as thin layers of moss and algae clinging to the damp coastal rocks, they form a faint green backdrop for the future, where terrestrial vegetation will one day arise. Further north, glaciers began to form over the Gondwana highlands as the climate fluctuated at the close of the Ordovician. Waves of frost gradually swept into the seas, lowering sea levels and triggering the Ordovician extinction event, reshuffling the ecological balance once again. You can feel the cold touch your skin, like an icy breeze reaching from the poles, making the waters chillier, their deep blue shifting to a gloomy grey. In that moment of intersection between warmth and cold, between the abundance of marine life and the first glaciation, the Ordovician period drew to a close with a grand motion. Sea levels fell, coral forests contracted, graptolite populations dwindled, and the ocean grew quieter. Yet within that silence, the future began to unfold. Opportunities for new species to evolve, and for land-dwelling organisms gradually to conquer the dry ground. As the morning mist gently settles upon the sea, we leave the Ordovician period to enter the Silurian period, the interval from about 444 to 419 million years ago. The air remains filled with moisture and the salty scent of the ocean. But subtle signals already herald the Earth's transformation. The continents are gradually stabilising, sea levels receding, and coastal lands beginning to reveal their warm surfaces. Imagine you are drifting on a crude wooden boat, its rough hull scraping against remnants of coral from the Ordovician age. Beneath your feet, the seawater is crystal clear, only faintly reflecting the shapes of limestone outcrops covered in algae. Gentle breezes carry the distinctive scent of earth, mingled with a hint of fresh algae, the first sign of terrestrial vegetation about to appear. Beneath the bow of the boat, giant seaweeds, algae, sway in the currents. They interweave into lush green carpets composed of red algae, brown algae, and green algae, gradually dominating the water's surface. Their flexibility allows them to cling tightly to submerged rocks, even as waves crash into white foam. The massive fronds of seaweed lift, opening patches of light to let sunlight seep through, nourishing the filter feeders below. Right alongside them, mollusks are more diverse than ever. The first corals, with tiny calcareous skeletons, develop into soft coral reefs, forming fairy gardens where tiny creatures seek refuge. The pink, yellow, and light brown hues of coral polyps grow into clusters, erecting tubular towers or canopy-like structures, each crevice providing safe shelter for crustaceans and gastropods. Along the seabed, brachiopods, bivalved mollusks similar to clams, grow as densely as prehistoric rice paddies. They remain fixed in place, their feeding openings facing upward to capture organic particles drifting by. Layers of brachiopods stack upon one another, creating a carpet of ivory white that floats like a snowy field beneath the water. Occasionally, shafts of light pierce the watery veil, illuminating the armour of the Silurian trilobites. Shells thinner, yet resilient, flexible articulations allowing them to bend their bodies to slip into rock crevices for protection. Some species bear tiny, needle-like spines that enhance their defence against predators. Clumsy juveniles often seek refuge among seaweed thickets, hiding and growing under the ocean's safe embrace. Meanwhile, prehistoric arthropods such as eurypterids continue to advance. Flattened bodies, razor-sharp claws, gliding over the soft sand. They grow ever larger, some exceeding a metre in length, pressing against the sandy shore to hunt smaller crustaceans. That spectacle lets you feel the powerful pulse of the primordial food chain. Yet the most significant mark of the Silurian period is not confined to the ocean's depths. Cast your gaze beyond the shoreline, where newly emergent land masses rise above the water. Fresh rock, streaked with silt, is covered by thin mats of green algae and the first mosses. Filamentous bacteria form dark green biofilms, clinging to damp stones. It is here that the earliest terrestrial plants, Cooksonia and Baragwanathia, begin to establish themselves. Tiny Cooksonia, only a few centimetres tall, stands like a simple vine shoot, branching sparsely. Lacking true leaves or deep roots, it absorbs nutrients directly through its stem from moisture in the thin soil layer. At each dawn, you can see tiny droplets gathered on its young buds, sparkling like crystals and glowing pearl white in the morning light. Not far away, Baragwanathia, a distant relative of modern ferns, possesses a more complex biology, a thicker stalk, small leaflets at the tips, and a primitive vascular system within its stem. Whenever the wind blows, its rows of tiny leaves tremble like an accordion, whispering in harmony with the sea's waves and the breeze through the seaweed forests. In that moment, you witness the thread binding aquatic and terrestrial life. As the first plants reach for sunlight, they open an era of land conquest. No longer a monotonous expanse of ocean, but a layered panorama. Seaweed, coral, arthropods and mollusks on the seafloor, and moss, filamentous bacteria, and land plants swaying beyond the shore. The Silurian period closes its opening chapter with a fragile balance between sea and land, between species accustomed to the deep and those daring to leave the water to explore the dry world. As the sunset fades, the sky blazes with violet-red hues, lighting your path back to the silent boat. When the dawn's light gradually breaks over the Silurian Sea, the air still carries a salty moisture, but the ecological scene has transformed dramatically. The clear water now teems with vibrant limestone coral reefs, from bright white tabulate corals to rugose coral masses that undulate like giant fans. They compete to reach upward, forming primeval rock ridges that serve as hiding places for countless vertebrate and invertebrate species. Beneath the warm water, jawless fish, agnathons, such as Cephalaspis, flourish. Their elongated bodies are encased in armour of trapezoidal scales, which scatter silver beams as they move. Yet the most striking development is the first appearance of primitive jawed fish, gnathostomes, with powerful fins and well-defined jaws, ready to bite off pieces of dead coral or hunt small crustaceans. Thanks to this new foothold, the seabed food chain becomes more complex than ever before. In the heart of the sea, giant eurypterids, some up to 1.5 metres long, continue to hold the title of top predator. Their razor-sharp claws leave impressions on the fine sandy sediment, producing a low rumble like crude tools at work. Each time they arch their bodies and disappear into rock crevices, the brachiopods and trilobites below tremble and scatter in search of safe refuge. On the coral ridges, primitive onychophorans, velvet worms, ancestors of silkworms and aphids, with soft bodies covered by a thin cuticle, appear. They move slowly along coral tubes, secreting sticky glue to catch mesh-like bacteria. Though small, they contribute to breaking down dead coral, recycling organic matter back to the seafloor. But the most important highlight of the Silurian Revolution lies in the fact that invertebrates begin to conquer land in earnest. The damp shoreline rocks now bristle with the imprints of Pneumodesmus pneumani, only a few centimetres long, clearly segmented, and possessing the first spiracles in insect history. When the sunset rays strike at an angle, you can see lines of Pneumodesmus crawling clumsily over the moss-covered rock, their cuticles clicking softly against the stone. Not far away, early arthropods, Arthropleura, take a giant step forward, bodies larger, segments broad and round, reaching up to 0.5 metre in length. Their descendants will grow twice as large in later periods, but even in the Silurian, they carve highways across coastal limestone, leaving deep grooves in the damp silt. Looking up onto the sandy shore, you see terrestrial vegetation continuing to expand. Cooksonia now grows in dense clumps nearly half a metre tall, producing buds at regular intervals. Baragwanathia rises with small paired leaves, beginning to resemble primitive ferns. Mosses and filamentous bacterial mats still form the foundational layer, but now the land plant clan has truly spread, creating the first organic soil on land and paving the way for more complex terrestrial ecosystems. Climatic stability in the Silurian also manifests in prolonged drizzles that increase humidity along the coast. In the gentle mist, you can hear the faint squeak of moss as water droplets condense and fall onto the rock. These are the ideal conditions for the first fungi to begin decomposing organic matter, opening the nutrient cycles that link plants and animals on land. The afternoon sky turns a rosy purple, and the world grows quiet. The ocean's waves thin, leaving only the soft lap of water on stone. Traces in the sand, bands of pneumodesmus imprints, eurypterid claw marks, the large segments of Arthropleura, each tells the epic story of the Silurian, when life began to cool the seas and master the parched land. As night falls, let your spirit drift between the ocean's low rumble and the earthy scent of moss. Recline upon a smooth rock, close your eyes and listen to the universe's heartbeat, from the deep sea to the whispering land. The dawn of the Devonian period gently lifts, tinting the low drifting clouds over the sea with rosy hues. Some 419 to 359 million years have passed, and the Earth now enters the phase dubbed the meat and bone moon, when life both underwater and on land bursts forth simultaneously, creating masterpieces of evolution. Immerse yourself in the early morning scene. Inhale deeply, the air still tinged with minerals and the essential oils of plants, and feel the warm breath laced with a hint of chill from the Devonian. Before you, the Devonian ocean is bluer than ever. The water is crystal clear, sunlight streaming through in shimmering beams, drawing your gaze into a world of thousands of bony fish, Osteichthyes, and ray-finned fish, Actinopterygii. Schools of small fish flicker like silver butterflies, appearing and vanishing as they swirl with the currents. Among them, the placoderms, the classic armoured fish, still hold their dominant position. Their thick, sturdy armour hugs their bodies, rows of overlapping plates protecting them from the razor-sharp teeth of their conspecific predators. Their powerful pectoral fins propel them in strong strokes, twisting their bodies to surge swiftly over the white sand in search of prey or to evade danger. Not far off, the giant Dunkleosteus, a monster over 6 meters long with stainless steel jaws, opens its mouth wide, crushing smaller armoured fish as if cracking dry corn. The clash of its iron-like plates reverberates with a deep rumble, shaking the surrounding waters. Yet it is thanks to Dunkleosteus that the Devonian food chain remains balanced. Top predators make room for smaller bony fish to thrive. Amid the swaying waters, you encounter vast carpets of giant seaweed on the seabed. Red and green algae interweave into lush mats, providing habitat for countless crustaceans and mollusks. The new Devonian brachiopods, with thicker shells and more flexible hinge mechanisms, form white hills that undulate, filtering organic particles drifting by like dewdrops. Tabulate corals also expand, growing into large flat coral islands dotted with pink and cream patches. Rising above the waterline, the Devonian coastline welcomes its first primeval forests. Terrestrial plants flourish. Moss spreads like a velvet carpet, continually building a thick organic layer to nourish larger plants. Cooksonia has now grown into taller branching stems, each small bulge on its branch housing nutrients and the buds of primitive leaves. Baragwanathia carpets the slopes by the sea, its paired leaflets trembling in the breeze like a forest chorus whispering in harmony. Pausing by a small stream emerging from the Devonian highlands, you hear the water tinkling over moss-covered rocks. The spring water is pure and cool, enriched with minerals from fragmented basalt. Along the bank, primitive lycophytes, the ancient pearl clusters, grow in clumps, thick stems bearing glistening new shoots dotted with dewdrops. Here, the first land animals, millipede relatives and ancient spiders, gingerly take their first steps. Their legs leave impressions in the soft mud, marking a pivotal moment. Organisms no longer merely inhabit the shoreline, but truly leave the water to conquer the land. Occasionally, a gentle rain drifts in from the north, moistening the earthy scent and mingling with the aroma of resin. Raindrops patter on leaf fronds and send ripples across the stream, composing a silent yet vibrant melody. Under the small canopy, ancient millipedes burrow into decaying leaf litter, feeding on fungi and bacteria, inaugurating the cycle of organic decay and nutrient recycling on land. This scene blends the radiant diversity beneath the waves with the peacefulness of newly emerged lands, soothing your spirit as if floating upon the currents of time. Every sound, the high-pitched hum of armoured fish, the faint squeak of moss stirring in water, the gentle patter of rain, weaves an ancient symphony that lulls you into a peaceful sleep. The coastal scenery and the jungle around the waterhole have donned a new appearance. Around 359 million years ago, the Devonian underwent a powerful transformation with two great turning points: the appearance of the first flying insects and root systems burrowing deep into the soil, laying the foundation for vast primeval forests. In the clear blue sky, tiny creatures spread wings for the first time. These were primitive insects, of the classes Entognatha and early Hexapoda, with thin membranous wings supported by simple veins. They drifted like curled dead leaves caught by the wind, alighting on the fronds of Baragwanathia, or extending their tube-like mouths to suck sap from the young lycophyte stems. Their gentle buzzing blended with the rustle of seaweed canopies below, composing the first natural symphony of flying insects. Beneath the primeval forest canopy, plant life continued its relentless growth. Cooksonia and Baragwanathia now grew in dense clusters up to nearly a metre tall. But most remarkable was Archaeopteris, the 100-legged tree, ancestor of later broadleaf trees. Its sturdy wooden trunk supported a wide canopy. A complex vascular system under its bark transported water and nutrients, enabling it to reach new heights while its roots plunged deep into the soil, breaking through mineral-rich sediment. Whenever the wind swept through, its leaves rustled like a green sea lapping the shore, heralding a major advance of the verdant land. With roots driving downward, the land began to form a thick humus layer, a mixture of fallen leaves, decayed plant matter, and fungal activity. Mycorrhizal fungi thrived, entwining around tree roots to assist in absorbing water and minerals. In the sound of passing drizzle, you could hear the crackle of dry leaves underfoot, and the fresh, earthy scent of damp soil brought a soothing calm. Amid that litter of decaying leaves, arthropods like millipedes, spiders, and early arachnids spread everywhere, establishing hunting networks and maintaining ecological balance. They were both sophisticated predators and organic recyclers, contributing to the nutrient cycle. Along streams and freshwater pools, bony fish continued their explosive diversification. Primitive cartilaginous fish appeared, bearing small, sharp teeth for feeding in shallow waters. Meanwhile, Devonian frogs, forerunners of amphibians, began to leave the shore, crawling onto thick mudflats, using their moist skin to conduct water and exchange gases. The first odd silhouettes of these early tetrapods left impressions in the soft mud, opening a new chapter in the conquest of land. As dusk fell swiftly, light filtered through the Archaeopteris canopy, painting glittering green-gold streaks across the jungle. The buzzing of insects mingled with the rustle of leaves and the gentle murmur of the stream, lulling you into a deep sleep. Let yourself drift amidst these sounds, dreaming of the lush Devonian forest where aquatic and terrestrial life joined hands, beginning the age of mighty broadleaf plants and powerful amphibians. Our footsteps weave through the dewdrops resting on giant club moss leaves as the dawn of the Carboniferous period breaks. About 359 million years ago, Earth's climate was warm and humid, with vast swamps stretching from the equator to mid-latitudes. Here, heavy vapours rose, mingling with the pungent resin scent to create an ethereal atmosphere, both gentle and captivating. Let your spirit find calm, inhale deeply the earthy dampness, and prepare for an adventure through an era where peat slowly transformed into black treasure. Coal. Beneath our feet, Paleozoic vegetation blankets the ground like a green silk carpet. Giant lycopsids, Sigillaria and Lepidodendron stand tall, reaching up to 30 metres, their trunks covered in dag-shaped scales like towering pillars of green stone amid the swamp. At their crowns, narrow spear-shaped leaves form cool canopies. The rustle of their fronds in the breeze sounds like a tranquil symphony. All around the horsetail relative, Calamites winds low around the tree bases, its bamboo-like stems 5 to 10 metres tall. Small branches sprout from knobby nodes, bearing fine needle-like leaves that tremble in the mist, painting a hazy tableau. Underfoot, thick layers of decayed leaves mingle with ancient plant remains, forming spongy peat, the precursor of the vast coal reserves to come. Following a muddy trail, we encounter jet-black pools where water has stood for ages, its surface coated with algae and filamentous bacteria. Drops of resin fall from lepidodendron trunks, glinting like raw pearls as they seep into the peat, aiding in the perfect preservation of fossils for the future. The creak of bark under a gentle touch echoes like a ceremonial bell announcing a grand epoch. Among the colossal trunks, giant millipedes, Arthropleura, silently crawl over the leaf litter. Their bodies, up to 2.5 metres long, consist of broad segments like immense tubes. Each step leaves deep grooves etched into the peat, ancient pathways leading into the primeval forest maze. The soft whisper of their claws on the ground reminds you of their extraordinary size. Not far off, a clear pool emanates faint steam. Inside, early tetrapods, ancestors of frogs and salamanders, swim leisurely. They cling to lycopsid roots, their gills releasing tiny bubbles that murmur like the breath of the earth. When one surfaces to breathe, you see its round eye and glossy, damp skin like a thin glass coating. Above, native insects, primitive roaches, Blattioidea, and giant dragonflies, Meganeura, circle through the forest canopy. Meganeura, one of the first giant dragonflies, spans up to 70 centimetres and sees across vast distances with its compound eyes. The beat of their wings echoes like colossal fans stirring the mist below. They hunt primitive grasshoppers and smaller long-bodied insects, creating a dynamic aerial scene in the Carboniferous sky. Amid the dense green carpet, the stilt-rooted Sigillaria anchor into the mud, drawing up nutrients and groundwater. Complex vascular channels within their trunks transport resin throughout the tree, helping them withstand strong winds and surging waters. When the wind sweeps through, Sigillaria trunks sway and knock together, sounding boomy like primal drums heralding the vibrant life within the swamp. Along the muddy stream banks, polytrichum moss covers damp rocks like soft green felt. Dewdrops glisten on its surface, reflecting the dim dawn light. When a droplet falls with a plop into the peat, it rings a gentle note that joins the symphony of sounds. The rustle of leaves, the buzz of insects, the brush of roots against the earth. When the first sunlight of the day filters through the canopy, the humid air warms. Vapours rise, mingling with the sweet resin scent to soothe the soul. We stand in silence within the primeval forest, listening to the breath of coal, an era so grand that most of today's coal deposits began forming here. Every tree, every creature, Every drop of resin, every layer of peat contributes to Earth's long story, buried beneath the ground for hundreds of millions of years. Let the image of the dark swamp forest and the rumbling sounds of nature lull you into a deep sleep. When you close your eyes, imagine the black peat piling up, preserving every trace of ancient life, waiting to be unearthed and reveal the story of the Carboniferous. The Carboniferous sky blazes with a fiery red sunset as we return amid the primeval swamps, where the fierce vitality of the Carboniferous still unfolds. Let your eyes rest on the vast scene before you, towering sigillaria and lepidodendron with stilt roots reaching upward and wide-spreading crowns. Alongside them, primitive woody plants like calamites, ferns and sphenopsids blanket the ground, forming an ever-joyful green park of flourishing life. Right beneath our feet, in the fine peat, the giant amphibians of the Devonian continue to thrive and diversify. Labyrinthodonts, a robust group of amphibians with flattened heads and plier-like jaws, lazily crawl along the stream banks. Imagine spotting an Eryops over 2 meters long, its rough, thick skin and calm eyes observing every ripple before it lunges its jaws to seize a small cartilaginous fish. The heavy slap of its footsteps on the peat echoes like a drumming backdrop to the ancient forest. Around the dark water channels, smaller tetrapods, such as Amphibamus or Dendropeton, slip through tangle of roots, emitting soft hisses that pierce the mist. Their slender bodies and flexible forelimbs adapt well to muddy terrain and tangled roots. When light flickers across the water's surface, you catch glimpses of their thin scales glinting like tiny gems interspersed in the peat. Across the land, Carboniferous insects continue to reign over sky and ground. Beyond the giant dragonfly Meganeura, you see entognathouse insects like Protereus matidae, with slender bodies and transparent wings etched with delicate veins. They bob above the water's surface, preying on small mollusks and soil-dwelling larvae. Their buzzing blends with the rustle of leaves, evoking a sense of ceaseless activity. Entering the shallow flooded forest, you find clusters of chordates, distant relatives of modern conifers, with long, stiff, pointed leaves reaching nearly 20 meters high. Beneath the chordate's canopy, the Carboniferous ferns, true queens of this flora, spread large pinnate fronds into a lush green carpet. In the lower understory, Lycopodiophyllum and Lepidostrobus, cone-bearing trees, release pollen and seeds into the air, laying the groundwork for the future success of seed plants. Amid this dense foliage, a small but significant discovery emerges. Within a decayed trunk of an ancient tree, fossils of Hylonomus, one of the earliest reptile-like tetrapods, have been preserved. Hylonomus, smaller than a modern mouse at about 20 centimeters long, with thin skin and sharp teeth for crushing insects and larvae. In your mind's eye, you see them slipping into wood crevices, leaping out to catch prey as dusk falls. The Carboniferous scene is not only a struggle for survival among species, but also a grand process of organic accumulation. Layers of fallen leaves and tree trunks settling in anoxic swamps, over millions of years compacting into thick peat, then buried under sediments, forming the precious black fuel for humanity's future. As a gentle breeze stirs, mist rises, the scent of resin drifts, mingling with the aroma of decaying foliage. Sleep here will be complete. You lie within the coal park, hearing the echoes of dragonfly wings, the plier snap of Eryops' jaws, the soft footsteps of Hylonomus on the peat. Every sound, from whisper to murmur, melds into an urgent natural symphony, lulling your soul into peaceful slumber. As the Permian sun rises, golden light spreads across the parched grasslands of vast Pangaea, where the Atlantic, Indian, Incan, and ancient oceans coalesced into one seamless expanse. Around 299 million years ago, the Permian landscape bore the marks of continental assembly. The Appalachians along the eastern shores, the Urals thrusting up in the north, and barren plateaus at the heart of the land. Gone were the boundless Carboniferous swamps, replaced by sun-baked semi-deserts, interspersed with sparse grasslands, the cracked earth baking under prolonged drought. The Permian day begins with the dry wind rustling through ancient conifers, chiefly Glossopteris, early seed plants like Gangamopteris. Glossopteris leaves, large and inversely egg-shaped with feathery veins, sway in the morning breeze, speckling the green carpet with dapples of sunlight. Below, shrub-like lycophytes and remnant horsetails such as calamites cling to rock fissures, seeking moisture wherever they can. Crossing into drier terrain, the sun gleams on millions of thin limestone slabs, where sparse tufts of primitive dark algae and polytrichum moss cling. The ground crumbles into red dust and scattered pebbles. Against this backdrop, Permian insects wheel in the sky. Besides the last giant dragonflies Meganeura, primitive cockroaches, Blattodea, and early grasshoppers, Orthoptera, dart overhead, casting long shadows across sun-warmed stone. Across the sun-baked plains, the first reptile-like synapsids appear. Dimetrodon, an icon of the Permian, stretches its sail back atop the dry leaf litter, its broad dorsal fin supported by thick veins that absorb heat. Each time it raises its head to draw in the dust-rich, resin-scented air, its eyes glint, reflecting packs of kin ready to ambush prey. Beside them, the herbivorous synapsid Edaphosaurus calmly nibbles Glossopteris leaves. Its dorsal spines are less imposing, but still stand out like a stone comb. The low rumble of Permian life echoes in the heavy footsteps of Cotyloorhynchus, giant leaf-eating synapsids that store water in subcutaneous fat to withstand drought. They move slowly, flicking out long tongues to lap resin, their large eyes heavy with the weariness of survival in a harsh climate. Their laboured breaths tremble the rocks, a reminder that Permian inhabitants learn to endure hunger and thirst. Not only synapsids, but also early reptiliomorphs, the distant ancestors of reptiles and dinosaurs, begin to flourish. Captohynus, with its multi-chambered skull and thick, scaly skin, slinks through cracked rock crevices to hunt insects. Meanwhile, primitive diapsids like Petrolacosaurus climb using sharp claws to grip rugged stone, exploring new territory and escaping the fierce heat. On Pangaea's foothills, grasslands open into lush riparian meadows, remnants of underground streams. Here, freshwater pools, filtered through gravel, form small oases where creatures gather to drink. Early amniotes like Hylonomus and Petrolacosaurus congregate at the water's edge, stretching their necks in quenching gulps before darting back under shade when a Dimetrodon's silhouette glides by. By midday, the Permian heat grows fierce. Rain comes only as summer storms, brief, intense downpours that quickly give way to scorching sun. When the deluge arrives, it drenches the Glossopteris fronds, each raindrop plinking onto rock with a hollow note. For a fleeting moment, the air cools, beckoning all life to emerge from shelters and resume the struggle for survival. At day's end, as the sunset reddens the horizon, Pangaea shifts once more. Long shadows stretch, and dry winds stir up dust over limestone outcrops. In that hush you can hear the breath of the Permian, wind through Dimetrodon's sail, the hiss of Captohynus slipping into rocky fissures, the distant murmur of insects. All blend into a primal chorus, simple yet fierce, echoing across this ancient supercontinent. The final days of the Permian are fading away as the sun yields to a purple-red dusk stretching over the cracked grasslands. During the interval, 252 million years ago, Pangaea's climate grew ever more harsh. Prolonged droughts, daytime temperatures soaring above 45 degrees Celsius, and freezing nights in the interior as dry, cold air swept in. In that desolate expanse, subtle signs of a great upheaval formed in silence, foretelling the catastrophe later called the Permian Triassic mass extinction. In the distance, Bleached limestone slabs lie fractured, on which scarce patches of moss and dark algae cling. The last stands of Glossopteris are exhausted, their leaves yellowing and dropping in clumps, revealing gaunt, dry trunks. Beneath the thin, sandy soil, fungi and bacteria can no longer decompose. Plant remains fast enough to replenish the shrinking organic layer, and the humus grows ever thinner. On the fiery western sky, the last swarms of Meganeura stagger through columns of scorching air, their thin membranous wings trembling in the hot updrafts from the ground. Their cool buzzing has thinned out. Only occasionally does a faint wing beat echo from afar, like a weary goodbye. Blatidea, cockroaches, and Protellitroptera, primitive, grasshopper-like insects, also dwindle, hiding beneath leaf litter and in rock crevices to escape the fierce sun. Amid the parched landscape, advanced therapsids begin to assert their place. Gorgonopsids, with large skulls and long dagger-like canines, stalk prey silently in the shade of dry trees, waiting for smaller synapsids, such as Lystrosaurus, to edge along scarce dry stream beds. Lystrosaurus, with its short snout and two small tusks, burrows into moist rock cavities to root out tubers and rhizomes, their only sustenance. Despite the hardship they endure by conserving water and feeding on a variety of desiccated plants. Nearby, dicynodont herbivores, also therapsids, have evolved a more efficient respiratory system, a primitive diaphragm that allows their lungs to double in capacity, supplying oxygen more rapidly. Their slow, rhythmic breathing reverberates like the final breeze passing through a canyon. Their bodies, clad in thick greyish skin, resist heat and retain moisture. In milder seasons, a sparse down of fine hairs emerges to preserve warmth at night. In that arid realm, violent dust storms sweep across, signalling a primordial El Niño cycle. Towering whirlwinds of sand that lift fossil fragments and small stones, roaring like thunder beneath the earth. The storms may rage for hours before abruptly dissipating, leaving a hazy sky and layers of ash-like dust coating the ground. As the light fades, everything takes on a muted grey cast, as though submerged beneath the deep blue waters of the distant Cambrian. Yet alongside that severity, rare oases persist, underground springs bursting forth to form small sparkling lakes amid the desert. There, small amniotes, like Macrocnemus and Proterosaurus, find temporary refuge. Their eyes glint as they peer into the water, their laboured breaths evidence of the advanced gas exchange systems that enabled them to survive in low-oxygen environments. On the final night of the Permian, the sky glows with an uncanny halo as late stars shine dimly behind a veil of ash. The sailbacks of Dimetrodon, now only known from fossil imprints, are gone from the open land, vanishing from the landscape. A faint whistling wind through rock crevices seems to call out the names of those final species standing at the brink of oblivion. Then, in an instant beyond perception, a muffled roar shakes the ground. Not from the heavens, but from deep within the earth. Lava erupts suddenly, along Pangaea's margins, blasting a colossal ash plume that blankets the sky. Toxic gases and superheated steam rise, glowing with a red-orange flame. Acid rain falls, CO2 and methane accumulate, driving global temperatures skyward. All that remains of Permian life, last corals, therapsids, insects, are swept away or buried beneath the ash. The catastrophe endures for thousands of years, eradicating over 90% of Earth's species. Only small, hardy lineages, ancestors of dinosaurs, deep-sea organisms, and a few therapsid clades, survive. When the ash eventually settles and the land cools, an entirely new chapter begins, the Triassic period, where life rebounds, diversifies, and the Permian world gives way to new forms of existence. The Carboniferous sky blazes with a fiery red sunset as we return amid the primeval swamps, where the fierce vitality of the Carboniferous still unfolds. Let your eyes rest on the vast scene before you, towering Sigillaria and Lepidodendron with stilt roots reaching upward and wide-spreading crowns. Alongside them, primitive woody plants like calamites, ferns and sphenopsids blanket the ground, forming an ever-joyful green park of flourishing life. Right beneath our feet, in the fine peat, the giant amphibians of the Devonian continue to thrive and diversify. Labyrinthodonts, a robust group of amphibians with flattened heads and plier-like jaws, lazily crawl along the stream banks. Imagine spotting an Eryops over 2 meters long, its rough, thick skin and calm eyes observing every ripple before it lunges its jaws to seize a small cartilaginous fish. The heavy slap of its footsteps on the peat echoes like a drumming backdrop to the ancient forest. Around the dark water channels, smaller tetrapods, such as Amphibamus or Dendropeton, slip through the tangle of roots, emitting soft hisses that pierce the mist. Their slender bodies and flexible forelimbs adapt well to muddy terrain and tangled roots. When light flickers across the water's surface, you catch glimpses of their thin scales glinting like tiny gems interspersed in the peat. Across the land, Carboniferous insects continue to reign over sky and ground. Beyond the giant dragonfly Meganeura, you see entognathouse insects like those in Proteres matidae, with slender bodies and transparent wings etched with delicate veins. They bob above the water's surface, preying on small mollusks and soil-dwelling larvae. Their buzzing blends with the rustle of leaves, evoking a sense of ceaseless activity. Entering the shallow flooded forest, you find clusters of chordates, distant relatives of modern conifers, with long, stiff, pointed leaves reaching nearly 20 meters high. Under the chordate's canopy, the Carboniferous ferns, true queens of this flora, spread large, pinnate fronds into a lush green carpet. In the lower understory, Lycopodiophyllum and Lepidostrobus, cone-bearing trees, release pollen and seeds into the air, laying the groundwork for the future success of seed plants. Amid this dense foliage, a small but significant discovery emerges. Within a decayed trunk of an ancient tree, fossils of Hylonomus, one of the earliest reptile-like tetrapods, have been preserved. Hylonomus, smaller than a modern mouse at about 20 centimeters long, with thin skin and sharp teeth for crushing insects and larvae. In your mind's eye, you see them slipping into wood crevices, leaping out to catch prey as dusk falls. The Carboniferous scene is not only a struggle for survival among species, but also a grand process of organic accumulation. Layers of fallen leaves and tree trunks settling in anoxic swamps, over millions of years compacting into thick peat, then buried under sediments, forming the precious black fuel for humanity's future. As a gentle breeze stirs, mist rises, the scent of resin drifts, mingling with the aroma of decaying foliage. Sleep here will be complete. You lie within the coal park, hearing the echoes of dragonfly wings, the plier snap of Eryops jaws, the soft footsteps of Hylonomus on the peat. Every sound, from whisper to murmur, melds into an ancient natural symphony, lulling your soul into peaceful slumber. The first Triassic sky opens like a smooth black curtain, sprinkled with faint stars through the lingering ash clouds left after the Permian Triassic crisis. Dawn slowly reveals the parched lands of Pangaea coming back to life, as warm breezes carrying pollen dust from newly formed desert plateaus blow across, sowing the seeds for an entirely new generation of creatures. On the gentle slopes, the first vegetation after the mass extinction begins to sprout. Early benetital shrubs with cap-shaped leaves, mosses and ferns tapping into morning dew for moisture. The crude, vertically grooved benetitale stems stand only about half a metre tall, but quickly green the ash-covered rocks. The rustle of their small leaves in the breeze sounds like a pure prelude to the Triassic rebirth. At your feet, fossilised wheel track imprints of small dicynodonts remain sharply defined on the red sandy plains, traces of synapsids that survived the Permian Triassic. Occasionally, a Lystrosaurus still ambles up from a sand burrow, its short snout sniffing for food among benetital roots. Its gait is slow but determined, a testament to a fierce will to survive. Far off, against a pale pink sky, a flock of flying lizards, Macrocnemus, twists through the air, their thin membranous wings allowing them to glide on gentle currents. Their sparse wing beats echo like a soothing melody in the hush. They use both forelimbs and interbody membranes to fly, hunting insects and pollen grains caught in the breeze. Beside Macrocnemus, the first reptilian creatures resembling dinosaurs, Euparkeria, begin to appear. Compact bodies covered in tough scales, gem-bright eyes, Euparkeria darts nimbly through the underbrush, pushing off with strong hind legs to flee predators. The sound of their feet striking the dry ground echoes softly among bennettitail and fern thickets. On the surfaces of rivers and freshwater lakes, the Triassic aquatic world also thrives. The first modern ray-finned fish, Semionotus, swim in schools through crystal waters, silver scales gleaming like radiant silk. Interspersed among them, primitive coelacanths, with thick bodies and broad pectoral fins, steer with slow grace, their sturdy jaws crushing fragments of aquatic plants. At the lake bottom, the jaws of early ichthyosaurs, Cartorhynchus, clamp around small crustaceans, silver scales flashing as their jaws grind shells with a faint creak. Each flick of their tail fin stirs cool currents that ripple, say, through the reviving mats of moss and seaweed, painting a vivid portrait of a hopeful Triassic ocean. On land, fern and bennettitail forests interweave with clusters of early conifer-like trees, Voltsia and Voltziopsis, straight trunks topped with clusters of small needle leaves, scattering pollen through the air. Thanks to their deep, penetrating roots, they stabilize sandy sediments and enable lower vegetation layers to flourish. The rustle of leaves sounds like the first symphony of a drought-adapted forest and its new inhabitants. Within the Triassic forest, phytosaurs, plant lizards, merge from burrows and stealthily crawl to riverbanks. Resembling primitive crocodiles with long snouts and sharp teeth, their bodies are armoured with thick scales. Submerged except for their eyes and nostrils, they wait for juvenile fish and frogs to swim by. Their faint hissing breaths through small nostrils echo like cold wind weaving through the trees. As the sun climbs, heat pours onto the land, dissipating the morning mist. A few dry gusts stir the bennettitail fronds, scattering pollen across the air. Aquatic and terrestrial creatures retreat briefly to refuge. Lystrosaurus returns underground. Macrocnemus hides under foliage. Ichthyosaurs slip into deeper pools. And Euparkeria crouches among low ferns. At sunset, when the sky glows a warm coral pink, a melodious refrain arises once more. The breeze whispering through trees, the faint patter of pollen drifting to earth, the soft wing beats of gliding lizards, all merge into the symphony of the Triassic, a triumphant rebirth after the storm of destruction. The Triassic sunset spreads across the parched rock slabs, the sky tinted rose-purple as a gentle breeze carries the scent of dry pollen and hot desert sand from the uplands. We follow the trail of time deep into 237-201 million years ago, when the Triassic roared back to life. The first dinosaurs emerged, diverse archosaurs rose to prominence, and the ancestors of birds and mammals made crucial strides. Lift your gaze to the haze of lingering volcanic ash, where flocks of primitive Dimorphodon, larger than lizards but with leathery wings, circle high above, gliding on thin skin membranes as they hunt insects and small reptiles. Their sparse wing beats echo like a soothing melody across the vast air, calming the soul and drawing you into the boundless sky. On the ground among bennettitail shrubs and ferns, the first fossilized dinosaur tracks appear. Eoraptor, one of the earliest dinosaurs, with its compact body and powerful hind legs, weighing only a few dozen kilograms, slinks through the undergrowth hunting smaller reptiles or rooting for nutritious tubers. As it moves, its slender toes press into the damp earth, stepping as lightly as an ancient dancer's rhythm. Not far off, Herrerasaurus, a true theropod killer, stalks slowly across the river edge marsh. Its razor-sharp jaws part, the metallic tang of blood still hanging in the air. Nearly 2 meters long with agile hind limbs and a straight tail for balance, Herrerasaurus ambushes from low shrubs and pounces on a smaller reptile, the snap of teeth tearing flesh and the victim's faint cry echo briefly before silence returns, leaving the predator's fierce silhouette alone in the desert stillness. But the Triassic plains were not ruled by dinosaurs alone. Cretaceous, the ancestors of crocodiles and pterosaur-line reptiles, rose as well. Large phytosaurs, long-bodied and crocodile-snouted with thick scaly armour, move slowly through river channels. Submerged except for eyes and nostrils, they patiently await fish and unsuspecting amphibians at the water's edge. When prey draws near, they erupt like a living turbine, snapping jaws shut before sinking back into the depths. On the shortgrass plains, armoured etosaurs lumber with heavy steps. Coarse, overlapping scutes cover their bodies like living plate armour. Using broad, flattened beaks, they root out plant roots and small invertebrates from the cracked earth. Their steady thud on the brittle ground forms a lively drumbeat of Triassic life. Along the forest edge, a pivotal evolutionary advance unfolds. Cynodonts, the distant forebears of mammals, appear. Small-bodied, with downy fur beginning to cover their skin and differentiated teeth, incisors, canines and molars for grinding food. You can imagine the soft creak of their teeth crushing fallen benetitail seeds, or the clicking of claws as they dig beneath the leaf litter for insects. On jagged rock faces, Drepanosaurus, a bizarre reptile, with hammer-shaped claws on its forelimbs, clings tightly, using its hooked talons to pry away moss and access the microorganisms living on the tree trunks. Each scrape of claw on stone rings out like a jubilant drumbeat, announcing the fierce struggle for survival in the Triassic food web. When night falls, the Triassic sky brightens with distant stars, their light reflected off the thin ash layer on the ground. The low cries of Dimorphodon echo through the darkness, mingling with the distant growl of a prowling Herrerasaurus and the soft huff of a submerged phytosaur. All combine into a vibrant symphony, guiding you into a wondrous Triassic dream. A thin mist still clings to the moss-covered slabs as the dawn light gently filters through the leaves, heralding a new day of the Jurassic period, the golden age of dinosaurs lasting from about 201 to 145 million years ago. The world feels half awake, where the soft sound of wind drifting through vast treetops mingles with the low roars of colossal creatures stirring from slumber. Let your mind drift among these primeval scenes as the tale of Brachiosaurus, Stegosaurus, and Pterosaur unfolds before you. First, you hear the breeze whispering through towering tree crowns, the jade green of cycad and Araucaria leaves reflecting the first sunlight. As the light breaks, the silhouette of a giant emerges in the distance. Brachiosaurus, the long-necked unicorn of the Jurassic. Its towering form, like a living castle, presses its pillar-like legs into the damp earth, its long neck reaching the young Araucaria fronds high above. Each slow chew produces a creaking sound of tooth against branch, like a soft bronze bell awakening the still sleeping valley. Not far away, along the forest-edged stream, herds of Stegosaurus stroll steadily. Along their backs run rows of diamond-shaped plates standing in neat alignment, forming mighty shields that catch the pale morning sun. Their stout tails, armed with two broad spikes like double spears, swing lazily as powerful defensive weapons. You can imagine the soft clatter of those spikes brushing together, tinkling across the open space like a dawn ritual. On the low grassy plains near the woods, smaller creatures such as Camptosaurus and Dryosaurus gather in herds, chewing ferns and low benetitail plants. A flock of Camptosaurus tucks away into cover when the heavy footsteps of a passing Stegosaurus herd rumble past, clearing the way for the parade of bone-plated giants. Turning your gaze skyward, You see shapes gliding through the air, pterosaurs, the pioneering flying dragons of the Jurassic sky. Small pterodactylus stretch their thin, membranous wings, drifting like autumn leaves on the wind, their keen eyes scanning for insects and unwary fish near the water's surface. Nearby, Rhamphorhynchus, with its long diamond-shaped tail vein, weaves through the air like a serpent in flight, skillfully hunting fish and airborne mollusks. Along the still lakeshore, footprints of a medium-sized sauropod, Camarasaurus, are etched clearly in the damp ground, each broad foot casting a deep print. When the sunlight strikes at an angle, their eyes shimmer with a silver gleam as they lift their long necks to browse the tall, bennetted-tail fronds, crushing young leaf clusters in their duck-billed jaws, creating a rustling like dry bark shattering. Amid these gentle memories, a faint salty scent drifts in from the nearby sea. Breezes from the ancient Tethys Ocean carry misted pollen and sea salt, bringing the soft susurrus of waves on the shore. Along the coast, plesiosaurs, distinguished by their slender, elongated necks and four paddle-like limbs, lazily cruise. Their lithe bodies skim the surface, silver reflections dissolving quickly into the morning haze, as if you stand between two realms, land and sea. In the depths of the forest, Allosaurus, the apex predator of the Jurassic, lurks in silence. Its golden eyes gleam, muscles rippling beneath thick skin. Each footstep is pressed silently into the damp earth. When it charges a herd of Camptosaurus or Dryosaurus, a deep growl resonates through rock walls and tree trunks, signalling the tense hunt about to unfold. The chilling slash of claws and the prey's chaotic shrieks ring out, then suddenly cease as Allosaurus succeeds. In the ensuing stillness, only the predator's heavy breathing and the faint metallic tang of fresh blood remain, reminders of the unforgiving, yet authentic law of survival in the Jurassic world. As dusk falls, the sky ablaze with orange hues. Herds of Diplodocus appear at the forest's edge. Their long, graceful bodies sway, tails whipping like rhythmic batons, striking jagged rocks with a booming echo, like a drumbeat marking the day's end. The herd exhales clouds of warm breath, mingling with the cool mist to form a soft, smoky veil, blanketing the vast landscape. In this final moment of the day's quiet, listen to the wind serenading the Araucaria canopy, the distant chewing of Brachiosaurus, the soft clatter of Stegosaurus tails, and the far-off buzz of pterosaurs, all blend into a soothing symphony, inviting you to drift into an ancient Jurassic dream. A thin veil of mist still clings to the moss-covered limestone slabs as the young moon rises over the Jurassic sky, casting a silvery glow across the Araucaria forests and towering cliffs. But the most captivating scene lies hidden beneath the waves of the Tethys Sea, where a stunning ocean realm awaits discovery. Immerse yourself in the cool water, let its gentle swells soothe your skin, and follow the brilliant lives of ammonites, ichthyosaurs, and ancient coral reefs. As you dive down a few dozen meters, light grows faint, yet the sea's jade green shimmers mysteriously. Before you drift schools of ammonites, shells spinning slowly like drifting whirls, bodies flexing gently with the currents. Their shells range from tight, solid coils to widely spaced spirals, each bearing crisp ridges like masterful carvings. Dim light dancing across their surfaces turns their black and white bands into enchanted patterns, making them appear as floating works of art in the sea. Among the ammonites glide sleek belemnites, translucent, ice-like bodies tapering to points, zipping by and extending short tentacles to snatch small crustaceans and bewildered juvenile fish. The soft click-clack of their shells tapping in the silent water heralds their cunning hunt on the seabed. Descending deeper, you encounter ichthyosaurs, the ancient dolphins of the Jurassic, with streamlined bodies, tall dorsal fins and powerful short tails. Early Ichthyosaurus glide by, their round jade-like eyes and smooth scales catching even the faintest light, scattering silver flecks across the dark water. When they open their jaws, rows of sharp teeth gleam, ready to seize fish and crustaceans. Each flick of their tail stirs up clouds of fine silt, ensuring the water around them never stands still. In the inky depths, a massive silhouette suddenly appears. An early Liopleurodon, one of the supreme predators of the Jurassic seas. Over 4 meters long and broad-bodied, with shark-like jaws lined with enormous serrated teeth, Liopleurodon thrusts its powerful pectoral fins and surges forward like a living torpedo. Its thunderous roar echoes off submerged rock walls, sending schools of ammonites and ichthyosaurs scattering toward the safety of coral reefs. And those living reefs, walls of stone, provide the perfect refuge. Rugose and tabulate coral polyps unite to build massive ancient reef structures, their white, pink and pale yellow patches forming great blocks. Interwoven among them, spongia sea sponges, with honeycomb-like channels cast shadows and offer shelter to hundreds of small fish, crustaceans and mollusks. The constant murmur around the reef, the flick of a fin, the opening and closing of polyps, creates a mysterious symphony of the sea. Within the reef's embrace you glimpse early sharks, Xenacanthus, with 2 short head spines and eel-like bodies, slipping soundlessly among crevices. Faint fin tracks in the sand testify to their silent hunts, a sudden whip of their tails, pectoral fins lashing out, clamping small prey before vanishing into the dark. Around the coral, soft carpets of seaweed sway, like green velvet. Red and green algae intermingle, adding vibrant hues, while long brown algae entangle rock outcrops, forming channels for tiny fish. Smile as miniature fish, early coelacanths and small semionotus, dart past your feet like silver butterflies in the deep. Swimming past an outcropping, rare shafts of light pierce cracks to illuminate a sponge garden. Crinoidea, the sea lilies, extending feathery arms to capture food. Their tangled crowns form a delicate veil, swaying gracefully in the current. The faint rattle of their arms brushing one another sounds like a solo concerto of the ocean. Beyond the reef, silvery grey rocks are blanketed by brachiopods and early bivalved sea creatures careening across the surface. They cluster in dense patches, creating a firm foundation for corals and sponges to flourish. The soft clink of brachiopod shells when a shark glides past echoes like tiny bells in the open sea. As you ascend toward the surface, you feel the weak sun's warm glow painting rippling beams on the fine silt. The ammonites rise again, spinning in the vast expanse, as though to welcome you back from your visit to the living reef kingdom. The gentle slap of waves on the surface blends with the reef's subtle clicks to lull you home. Close your eyes and drift into a Jurassic, deep-sea dream, where ammonites coil and swirl, ichthyosaurs dart swiftly, Liopleurodon charges with majestic power, coral sparkles and sea lilies dance their mysterious waltz. When you awaken, you will carry the vision of that ancient ocean paradise in your heart. Ready for Chapter 8, Part 1, as you enter the Cretaceous. The age of Tyrannosaurus, the mighty Triceratops horns, and skies filled with giant pterosaurs. The Cretaceous dawn slowly emerges above the horizon, tinting the broadleaf forests and sweeping plains with rosy hues. From about 145 to 100 million years ago, Earth entered the final glorious chapter of the dinosaur era, a world of astonishing biodiversity where countless species competed for light and survival. Let yourself drift on the cool breeze, inhale the heady scent of pollen, and listen as the Cretaceous story unfolds. Along the winding riverbank, towering broadleaf trees stand sentinel. Ginkgo, Benetitel, and the last survivors of the Araucariaceae mingle with the explosive rise of flowering plants angiosperms. Beneath their canopy, spiky Paleoanguis grass forms a lush carpet, dotted with small white and purple blossoms, whose sweet fragrance lures insects and small birds. dewdrops cling to the petals like pearls, heralding a new day full of promise. By the clear stream, massive iguanodon graze leisurely, using the thorned thumb on each hand to dig up roots and tear through tough seed coats. When an iguanodon lifts its head, gentle eyes reflect the morning light, and the steady crunch crackle of its chewing signals the prosperity of these herbivores. A little farther on, the spectacular Spinosaurus emerges at the edge of the brackish water. Its enormous body is topped by a tall sail, like a wind-caught sailboat, helping regulate heat under the blazing sun. A soft rumble issues as it opens its long jaws, rows of serrated teeth resembling primitive saw blades, ready to snatch fish, aquatic reptiles, and even thick-shelled bivalves. Beneath its feet, muddy footprints stain the riverbank like a survival map of Cretaceous life. On the low grasslands, Carcharodontosaurus, the jagged-toothed terror, moves with silent menace, its cold gaze fixed on the herds of iguanodon. Lean and muscular, with powerful hind legs and a long balancing tail, it prowls until the moment to strike. When Carcharodontosaurus charges, a deep roar shatters the stillness and heralds a ferocious hunt. In the Cretaceous skies, pterosaurs, lords of the air, continue to glide gracefully. The giant Quetzalcoatlus stretches its 10-metre wingspan like a vast parachute, surveying the endless plains below. Alongside it, smaller raptors such as Microraptor skim low, then dive to snatch grasshoppers and baby lizards, calling out a sharp kiki that punctuates the blue expanse. Offshore, early mosasaurs, the sea lizards, patrol the nearshore waters with long jaws and 4 paddle-like limbs. They slip among the last drifting ammonite shells, cream, black and brown spirals like scattered jewels, chasing them with soft swishes of their fins that stir the silty bottom in a lullaby for the Cretaceous ocean. Between the plains and the shoreline, the ceaseless hum of Cretaceous insects fills the air. Colourful butterflies fluttering among flowers, ancient bees flitting from bloom to bloom, and the first cicadas singing. Prolonged calls that echo beneath broadleaf canopies. That chorus, together with the rustle of leaves and the distant thud of dinosaur footsteps, weaves a vibrant symphony that soothes the soul. As twilight deepens to purple across the horizon, the Cretaceous world bathes in enchanted light. Herbivores find safe havens, rows of iguanodon settling by the riverbank. Predators like Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus withdrawing into the forest to await nightfall. Above, pterosaurs roost in rocky crevices. Below, mosasaurs rest in sheltered sandy bays. Close your eyes and carry this vision of the Cretaceous dawn within you, a land of flowering forests, majestic giants, and skies and seas filled with life. As the Cretaceous twilight fades, the sky turns a pale lavender, and the day's last breezes carry fine desert dust through the limestone cliffs. This is the final moment of glory before destiny shifts. The apex reign of Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, and the first harbingers of a cosmic death blow. Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant king of the late Cretaceous, emerges silently from the mist along the low grasslands. Its massive frame, nearly 6 metres tall and over 12 metres long, is sheathed in wrinkled skin over rippling muscles. Enormous jaws part to reveal rows of dagger-like teeth stained with the dried blood of its day's last hunt. You hear its laboured breaths and the thunder of its claws on cracked earth, each step resounding with irresistible authority that sends every creature in retreat. Nearby, a herd of proud Triceratops stands by an ancient tree. Their 3 massive horns, raised like battle helmets, gleam coppery in the dying light. Broad armoured bodies and thick hides resemble living tanks, tails drooping to the ground. When a Tyrannosaurus suddenly appears, the Triceratops form a defensive circle, horns outward, a forged wall of steel tested by strength and unyielding resolve. Amid this tense tableau, you hear the low growl of the alpha predator meeting the horned wall. Tyrannosaurus steadies itself, pale yellow eyes flickering with conquest lust, then steps back as a Triceratops lunges its horned snout through the air with a sharp hiss of pressure. In that instant, the ancient law, survival of the fittest, is etched forever in memory. But however grand the Cretaceous world, signs of decline are already stirring. Along the shores of the ancient Tethys Sea, shallowing waters halt coral growth as weak polyps fail to build new reefs. A layer of russet silt smothers ammonite shells and sea lily gardens. Sudden mudstorms bury marine life in churning sediment. On land, distant volcanic eruptions spew ash that drifts across the sky, dimming the sun to a watery glow as ash-laden rains fall. Herbivores like Edmontosaurus attempt migration, tearing at withered foliage, but vegetative cover thins and cannot sustain them. Whiffs of sulphur mingle with the heat of far-off lava flows, a harbinger of global geological upheaval. Then, a cataclysm arrives from above. A massive meteor blazes through the atmosphere, trailing a brilliant streak and a thunderous roar. A fireball ignites the Cretaceous skies before vanishing into a churning plume of smoke. Impact-induced clouds engulf Earth, blocking sunlight and plunging global temperatures. Birds cry in terror, insects fall silent, and all land-dwelling creatures hold their breath, facing the inescapable end. In an instant, darkness descends, and rains of dust and acid batter the prairies, broadleaf forests and primeval seas. Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, pterosaurs, mosasaurs, all the mighty rulers of the Cretaceous, fade into silence, leaving only silent fossil traces buried beneath earth and rock. And then, after the chaos subsides, a new world begins to take shape. The giant dinosaurs are gone, replaced by tiny flocks of birds and daring, early mammals emerging from their burrows, if they were lucky enough to survive. The first pale dawn, after the KPG catastrophe, appears faintly, but carries the spark of hope for life's renewal. The dawn of the Paleogene, about 66 to 56 million years ago, marks the beginning of a world utterly different from the majestic Cretaceous. The skies clear of lingering ash to a softer light, temperatures stabilise, and the air grows fresh. Let your spirit drift across this renewed land, where mammals and birds begin to assert themselves, ushering in a bright new era. Along the cool riverbanks, flowering angiosperms burst into bloom everywhere. The first tree you see is Paleogene, a few metres tall, with large round leaves and vivid yellow blossoms that exude a sweet fragrance to attract insects. Interspersed are early birches, Betula, slender-trunked with paper-smooth white bark, swaying in the breeze to create a gentle rustling melody. Amid the foliage, tiny multicoloured birds, the ancestors of modern birds, offer a morning chorus. A pair of juvenile gastonis, oddly shaped like giant geese, peck among the shrubs for seeds and insects. Their low calls echo through the woods, announcing the new day. Above, primitive ground ferns, early Polypodiaceae, stretch their divided fronds to the sun. Their broad, lush leaves form a carpet that hosts a rich food web. Leaf-eating beetles, ants and ancient cockroaches scuttling through the foliage, and small birds like Apterygiformes, the forebears of jungle fowl, silently tapping beaks on bark in search of insects. By a crystal-clear stream, the water babbles over pebbles and smooth stones. Schools of Paleonisciformes, early forerunners of modern snapperfish, dart about, silver flashes flickering in the sunlight. On a damp rock, you may spot the primitive frog, Ascarphus, its flat feet gripping the stones, bright eyes scanning for passing insects to snatch. A little farther, the grasslands open to a warm tableau. The last small dinosaurs give way to a diversity of mammals. Coryphodon, pig-sized herbivores with stout snouts for grinding leaves. Early deer-like protoceras with 3 small horns above their snouts slowly grazing. And Mesonyx, small wolf-like carnivores, darting through low brush to stalk prey. In the sky, the first migratory birds, Primocenidae, fly in flocks, circling warm sunbeams in pursuit of flying insects and fallen nuts. Alongside them, early primates, tailhardina, small and nimble, with deft fingers, climb branches to pluck ripe fruit. Their cheerful chi-chi calls herald the vibrant chorus of the Paleogene forest. Along the streams and marshes you see tracks of early wild pigs, Homo galax, with elongated snouts and compact bodies murmuring to one another as they forage in the mud. Primitive tulpirs, heptodon, with short trunks and webbed toes, sniff the earth, then splash the water with soft squeaks at the first sign of danger. The Paleogene world bears the mark of climatic shifts. Sudden downpours bring cool relief and the scent of damp earth. The rain moistens the broadleaf canopy, spurring fungi and soil microbes to flourish. In that damp embrace, amphibians like Ambystoma crawl through leaf litter, their moist skin catching the diffused light. As evening falls, the sky glows pink-orange. Coryphodon returns to rest by the trees. Protocerus gather in herds by the streams, and Mesonyx hide beneath thickets. Migratory birds roost in the branches, their eyes reflecting the fading light. The water stills, and the only sounds are the soft rustle of ferns and the faint chirr of Ascaphus frogs. When night gently falls upon the Paleogene swamps, the sky tinted pale blue by the slim crescent moon, we continue our journey across the stretching valleys and windswept highlands. Time passes, about 56 to 23 million years ago, and the Paleogene terrain and climate continue to transform, revealing a diverse landscape of bamboo-screened jungles, riverside grasslands and mangrove swamps, where the first large mammals appear one after another. Wet, primeval rainforest. Before us lies a lush, broadleaf carpet, early mahogany trees with colossal crowns, trunks thick as power poles, bark cracked into natural armour sheltering birds and small mammals. Beneath the mahogany canopy, low-trunk dipterocarps grow so close together that their leathery leaves drip fragrant resin when stirred by the wind. As night descends, the endless chirr of crickets blends with the buzzing of ancient hornets, a gentle symphony of the nascent rainforest. Among the thick layer of leaf litter covering the ground, prehistoric primates, like Eosimias, small-bodied with long legs and dexterous claws, leap among the branches. Their eep-beep calls ring out in cheerful trills, both a morning greeting and a safety signal to their troop. When dim light filters through the foliage, you spot Eosimias swaying overhead, plucking deep red berries and savouring their sweet flavour. Swamps and rivers. Moving toward a broad river, you hear water babbling over stones. The riverbank is lined with early fan palms, coryphoids, with slender trunks and fan-shaped leaves that flutter gently in the current. Beneath the surface, Pleistocene, forebears of the pangolin, wade in search of food, using their digging snouts to unearth roots and aquatic invertebrates. Their low grunts resonate warmly, mingling with the soft splash of water. In the river itself, bowfin-like fish, Amia, glide lazily, their silvery scales catching the light as their tails stir tiny bubbles. On the shore, the first sea pigs, Desmostylus, appear suddenly, plump bodies with short proboscises, slowly crawling onto soft sand to nibble algae and aquatic plants. The crack of their claws against the sand, paired with their muffled grunts, awakens the stillness. Expansive grasslands. Further on, grasslands stretch where reed grass and young millet sway in the breeze. Here, Hyraceus, the ancestor of the rhinoceros, grazes leisurely, sturdy frame nibbling grasses with a bifurcated snout that acts like a sharp cleaver. Herds of Hyraceus move together. When they shake, the grass ripples like green waves. The steady crunch crackle of their teeth grinds grass, evoking a simple pastoral chorus of the Paleogene plains. Not far off, flocks of Hyracotherium, the ancestor of the horse, small, slender-legged with 2 developed toes, dart nimbly through the grass. At sunset, they gather in groups, nuzzling each other for warmth, their soft neighs ringing out like a lullaby. the appearance of large mammals. Venturing into upland territory, we unexpectedly encounter Andrewsarchus, one of the first large mammals. Massive like a giant wolf, long snout and huge canines, skin thick and wrinkled. Andrewsarchus lurks near the riverbank, bright eyes scanning for fish, water birds or Uintatherium, large horned herbivores passing by. When Andrewsarchus charges, a fierce shriek echoes through the valley, resonating with the power of primordial strength. Late Paleogene climate change. In the late Paleogene, around 34 million years ago, Earth's climate began a gradual cooling. Cold winds from the poles swept in, carrying mist and even rare highland snow. Tropical vegetation contracted, giving way to early pine and spruce forests, Pinus and Picea, along with cold-tolerant birches. The whistle of wind through the pines sounds lonely, mingling with the rustle of leaves. Herds of Urtish deer, the ancestors of modern deer, migrated to warmer plains, leaving hoofprints in frost-hardened mud. Wild boar ancestors, Paracolobus, took refuge in scrub forests, foraging fallen fruit, their soft squeals echoing through snowy mists. End of the Paleogene, dawn of the Neogene. When night falls, the Paleogene sky fills with cold stars, and the final sounds echo, the whispered growl of Andrewsarchus in mountain passes, the faint whistle of cold wind, and the soft tremor of pine needles. All traces of the Paleogene, from giant birds and the first primates to large mammals and sweeping grasslands, drift into history's sleep, preparing for the transition to the Neogene. Let the images of steamy rainforests, vast grasslands, and the final snows of the Paleogene linger in your mind, a majestic requiem for a world that has passed. When your eyes open again, the bell of the Neogene will ring, where modern mammals flourish and the plains become endless seas of grass. Sleep deeply and dream of the Paleogene's wondrous landscapes. The Neogene sky gradually brightens after the quiet night, as Earth enters the period from about 23 to 2.6 million years ago, a journey marked by climate stability, continental shapes dividing clearly as today, and modern mammals beginning to dominate every corner of the biosphere. Let the morning mist settle lightly on the branches, inhale the scent of damp earth, and begin our voyage through Neogene grasslands, broadleaf forests and swamps. First, we stand amid vast, tall grass plains, where the first equus, the direct ancestors of modern horses, stride gracefully. The clop-clop of their hooves echoes in a rhythmic melody across the endless green. A herd of wild horses coated in thick fur, with long manes still bearing dewdrops from the night, leisurely graze as dawn has yet to fully break. Not far off, the broadleaf forest begins to appear. Magnolia and liquidambar are spread dark canopies with straight trunks casting deep shade. Light filters through the leaves, creating shimmering ribbons across the damp ground. Beneath a magnolia canopy, small Cercopithecidae, the ancestors of African green monkeys, stoop to pick fruit and tender leaves. Their chatter of oo-oo trills echoes through the woodland, evoking the first tropical symphony of the Neogene. Moving into the riverside swamps, you feel the humidity and scent of brackish mud. Here dwell the early hippopotamus, massive rounded bodies and slick, thick skin. Hippos wade into the water, leaving only their heads and backs exposed, exhaling bubbles. That low, resonant sound drifts through the air, conjuring images of gently meandering rivers. In the shallow floodplain, the first giraffe, the ancestors of giraffes, begin to assert their trademark form. Their long necks arch, heads rising above low canopies to carefully pluck leaves with dexterous lips. The soft rustle of foliage as they eat is a soothing lullaby. Their long hind legs and sturdy hooves leave faint tracks in the soft mud, trailing like the flowing lines of a passing epoch. In the clear blue sky, flocks of Phoenicopteridae, the ancestors of flamingos, fly in V-shaped formations, pale pink wings reflecting the weak sunlight and painting a magical streak across the heavens. Their clear ringing calls take wing as they change direction, like a living brushstroke on the Neogene canvas. Farther north, the lower mountain slopes reveal conifer forests, intermingled picea and pinus, whose needles rustle in the gentle breeze. Beneath the pines, early canis, the ancestors of wild dogs, slip silently through the undergrowth, lean bodies and bright eyes tracking the scent of small prey. The crisp crackle of needles under paws, joined by the whisper of wind, heralds a stealthy hunt. Returning to the open grassland, we encounter a herd of elephas, the ancestors of African elephants, with long curved tusks and massive bodies. The gentle clicking of tusks against one another sounds like a ritual drumbeat, while trunks skillfully reach for high leaves and sweep them down to savour their scent. Those heavy footsteps form an ancient percussive rhythm. Across this vast scene, the first panthera, ancestors of cheetahs and lions, begin to appear on the plains and forest edges. Golden eyes flicker, sleek bodies melting into the twilight shadows as they stalk early Antilocarpra, small, short-horned pronghorn ancestors, nimbly darting among the grasses. A low, throaty growl from a panther echoes through the stillness, signalling the start of a nocturnal hunt. When dusk paints the horizon violet, the Neogene land is bathed in the flickering glow of fireflies along the riverbank. Chorus after chorus of rana frogs calls out in repetition, mingling with the droning song of cicadas. In the thin mist, you hear maple leaves drifting down with a soft patter, joining in the lullaby of day's end. When the Neogene sky finally closes the chapter on its age of trials, we turn toward the Pleistocene epoch, from about 2.6 million to roughly 11,700 years ago, where the vast grasslands steadily shrink before the biting cold of advancing ice sheets, and prehistoric humans begin to leave their first marks upon the world. Frozen grasslands are majestic beasts. Before us stretches a wild steppe, its thin snow blanket glinting silver, each time a pale sunbeam breaks through heavy clouds. Mammoths primigenius, woolly mammoths with their dense coats, trudge in herds, faint stripes of darker fur visible against the snow, their ivory tusks clicking with a crunch crackle. Their breaths plume white as they forage for dry grass along frozen lake shores. In the distance, a Smilodon fatalis, saber-toothed cat, lies hidden amid icy thickets, its long crescent fangs protruding like razor blades, yellow eyes dimly tracking the scent of potential prey. The arrival of prehistoric humans. Amid this icy scene, a band of Homo erectus kneels beside a stream, tending a glowing fire, warm embers like jewels in the night's darkness. The crackle of burning wood sends up wisps of smoke that melt the frost on nearby stones. They fashion sharp flake tools from broken rocks, striking bone from hunted animals with rhythmic click-click echoes across the frigid air. As they prepare their evening meal, the savoury aroma of roasted meat banishes fatigue and promises another 1,000 miles of journey tomorrow. Not far away, Homo heidelbergensis gathers around a larger fire, passing chunks of oak timber, the flames flickering like the breath of a collective spirit. As they share venison, tales unfold through sweeping gestures and weathered expressions of survival's hunger and the resolve to conquer this frozen wilderness. The hunt and gathering. By day, group members take on tasks. One party wields spears, following faint hoofprints on thin ice to drive woolly muskox, Ovibos moscatuus, toward cliff edges. Another forages for roots and wild grains, the ancestors of wheat and barley, beneath the shallow, unfrozen soil. With their sharp tools, they painstakingly remove husks, grind kernels, and boil them into a warm porridge that provides vital energy in the bitter cold. The only sounds across the steppe are the wind's howl through rocky passes and the soft hiss of drifting snow. At dusk, the group reconvenes by the fire, listening to the crackle of flames and distant call of lurking predators. In that moment they vow, "We will survive." We will tame this frozen land. The turning point of domestication. As the last ice age wanes, around 14,000 years ago, the steppes gradually give way to wet river forests and fertile plains. Early Homo sapiens step into the agricultural era. They select nutrient-rich grains and carry them in leather pouches to sow along stream banks, shifting from foraging to tilling. The gentle thwack of digging sticks in damp soil heralds the dawn of civilization. Alongside cultivation, humans domesticate the first wolves, Canis lupus familiaris, strange howls gradually yielding to familiar growls as they stroke shaggy coats. These hunting dogs not only help track prey, but also warn of strangers, becoming loyal companions in the wild. Next, early farmers tame goats, Capra aegagrus, and sheep, Ovis orientalis. The pitter-patter of tiny hooves on the earthen floor and the bleating of lambs create a lively scene around wooden pens. They learn to milk goats and sheep, fermenting the milk into cheese and discovering its gentle richness. A culinary turning point. The rise of villages and early societies. Around fields of barley and wheat, clay-walled huts spring up, forming small villages with wooden gates. The laughter of children at play, the hum of sisal looms, and the rhythmic thud of mortar and pestle fill the air. The village courtyard becomes a centre of exchange. Men sharpen hunting tools, women trade seeds and shell ornaments, sparking the first social interactions. The end of the Neogene. As the final Pleistocene night falls, the starlit heavens above bear witness to humankind's first civilizations, from frozen steppes through early agriculture to the warmth of village fires. The crackle of flames, the thud of digging sticks, and the dog's soft howls merge into the symphony that closes the Neogene, ushering in the Holocene, the age of our own making. The Paleolithic dawn of the Holocene gently shines through the last wisps of mist on the ground after the Ice Age, when time began approximately 11,700 years ago. The world that once endured powerful glaciations now enters a stable, warm era. Sea levels rise, ice and snow steadily melt, revealing fertile plains and dense mangrove-fringed coastlines. Let us listen to the planet's fresh breath, where nature and humanity together rebuild life. Along the ocean shore, stands of red mangrove, Rhizophora, and grey mangrove, Soneratia, cast verdant shade, their tangled roots lifting layers of silt. With each rising tide, salty water surges through the roots, carrying nutrients that sustain hundreds of small fish and crabs hidden in the wind-blown mud. The gentle lap of waves through the mangrove roots sounds like an expansive tidal symphony, soothing the soul of any time-lost traveller. Inland, vast grasslands sprout, where former boreal forests once stood. Wild grasses, Panicoideae and Puideae, carpet the fertile soil, swaying in the soft breeze. Each afternoon, herds of Saiga antelope, Saiga tatarica, migrate across the fields, their distinctive bulbous snouts excavating dry grasses as they inhale the scented air. The rhythmic clatter of their hooves on parched land composes a steady melody of survival. In the riverine wetlands, still waters mirror the deep blue sky. White mangrove Avicennia. Trees crowd together, their pneumatophores rising like snorkels, to draw oxygen in the brackish marsh. Beneath the canopy, Tilapia Oreochromis glide in search of prey, bright eyes darting through every crevice. The flap of wings from migratory waterfowl, ducks, anas and whistling ducks, Dendrocygna, echoes across the tranquil expanse. Further afield, broadleaf forests regenerate, where oaks, quercus and hawthorns malus grow shoulder to shoulder, straight trunks providing cool shade. Beneath the boughs, mulberry bushes, Morus, bend heavy with red fruit, attracting hedgehogs, Erinaceidae, and squirrels, Sciuridae, on the hunt. The soft patter of falling seeds, pecked by sparrows, passeridae, rings out in a lively chorus, the anthem of new life. On the pebble-strewn bank of a creek, early human footprints press into the soft mud. Neolithic traders carry polished stone tools, winnowing baskets of grain and seeds. They have devised small earthen dams to irrigate wild wheat and barley fields. The gentle murmur of water through irrigation channels becomes the subtle symphony of the first agricultural civilization. The excited barks of the first domestic dogs ring across the hillside as they guide four-legged flocks through fields, warning wild animals to avoid the newly founded villages. Next, they pen goats and sheep in wooden enclosures. The soft thud of young hooves at night is the warm heartbeat of a nascent community. At midday, the heat cracks the earth, but Neolithic farmers cleverly mulch young tree roots with dry leaves and straw, preserving moisture for tender seedlings. The low murmur of conversation along the seedling rows mixes with the hum of native bees collecting pollen. They understand the importance of pollination and crop diversity for bountiful harvests. By afternoon, distant mountains glow in warm light, marking the boundary of wild hunting grounds. Prehistoric Homo sapiens, armed with bone and wooden weapons, hunt deer, wild boar, and even forest elephants, Elephas antiquus, for communal feasts. The twang of bowstrings and the sharp crack of struck targets resonate like an epic ode to survival skills. As sunset falls, the entire Holocene valley is bathed in pale golden light. Children's laughter echoes throughout the village. Hearth fires crackle fragrant smoke of dry wood. Under thatched roofs, women grind grain at millstones, their deft hands turning kernels into flour. Men prepare animal hides and stitch bags for food and tools. They continue writing the story of civilization. When the Holocene night envelops the horizon, the small village scatters warm hearth fires as we faintly recall the ancient rivers winding through the first kingdoms on Earth. Now, humanity lives not just by farming and herding. They have begun to carve their fate on history's map, with legendary civilizations where fertile land and flowing waters meet. Mesopotamia, cradle of writing and law. The Tigris and Euphrates split a vast plain where the Sumerians, Akkadians and Babylonians in turn built great cities. Uruk, Babylon. Along the riverbanks, dense reeds provided material for thatched homes, while broad marshes supplied fresh fish and wildfowl. The Sumerians skillfully moulded clay tablets and inscribed them with cuneiform to record harvests and trade agreements. Gentle bells rang from the temple of Enki, the water god, like a tidal melody soothing the soul, while priests recited prayers for favourable rains and winds. In the rosy glow of late afternoon, King Hammurabi proclaimed his law code on black stone. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, carved deep as a reminder of justice and order. Egypt, Nile dynasty, and the pyramids. Far to the west, the Nile wound through fields of golden wheat that shimmered against white desert sands. Egyptian farmers expertly managed reservoirs, so floodwaters rose and receded predictably, depositing fertile silt. On the river's edge, giant crews of labourers set a wooden rhythm with palm-wood drums as they hauled massive limestone blocks up inclined ramps, gradually raising the great pyramids of Giza. In the solemn temple, rituals honoured Ra, the sun god, and stone trumpets echoed praises to Pharaoh, the living child of the gods. At dusk, the last sunlight struck the pyramid faces, turning them pale gold, symbols of immortality and belief in the afterlife. Indus Valley, sustained riverine civilization. To the east, the Indus River brought cool moisture into Sindh and Punjab. The Harappans and residents of Mohenjo-Daro built fortified brick walls, elaborate drainage systems, and public latrines, early hallmarks of urban planning. At faint dawn, children played by the water's edge, their laughter rippling like small waves. Adults fetched water to knead clay and fire into bricks. They crafted exquisitely patterned pottery, imprinted with lotus blossoms and sacred cattle, an immense symphony of handcrafted artistry. At sunset, thousands of torchlights winked across the city, marking a civilization in harmony with nature's flow. China, Yellow River and the origins of Confucianism and Taoism. High along the Yellow River, the Shang and Zhou dynasties ushered in the Chinese Age of Kings. People reclaimed river terraces, ploughing fields with oxen and raising fish in flooded paddies. In wooden oak palaces, refined scholars in linen robes taught the virtues of benevolence, ritual, righteousness, wisdom and trust. Temple bells rang at the shrine of Confucius like hymns to ethics and filial piety. Even humble farmers carved Chinese characters onto pottery to record harvests and ancestral rites. At dusk, crimson lanterns lit pebbled streets in ancient towns, flickering like fireflies guiding seekers of knowledge. Intercontinental connections. Over time, people ventured beyond their valleys, opening trade along the Silk Road, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, India, and China. Caravans bore spices, silk, and precious metals across the Gobi and Sinai deserts. The click of camel hooves on sand and the cries of desert birds wove an endless symphony of human civilization. Relief carvings and oral legends mingled tales of wise King Solomon, the Yellow Emperor Kuai, and the priest King Gilgamesh seeking immortality, blending into a magnificent tapestry of history. When the late night falls, stars from the Great Bear shine down upon Egyptian temples, Babylonian ziggurats and Confucian shrines. The soft lapping of the Nile, the whispering breeze through Indus fields, and the tolling bells of Chinese temples unite in a gentle concerto that lulls you into deep sleep. Let the images of pyramids, temples, and legendary trade routes linger in your mind as a reminder of humanity's unity and enduring aspirations. The dawn of the Quaternary opens on the stage of the Pleistocene, when Earth entered a series of glacial cycles repeated from about 26 million to 11,700 years ago. Let your spirit sink into this realm where frost and life intertwine, as the world remains fiercely cold, and every creature must adapt to survive. Drifting icebergs and ocean ice sheets. On the Arctic Ocean, warm currents abruptly stall as temperatures plunge, sending massive icebergs carving off Greenland to drift across high latitudes. Picture yourself standing on a rocky headland in northern Europe. Icy waves crash, pure white ice floes glide by, and freezing spray bites the air. The cracking of the ice, like a vibrating choral overture, reminds you that the Pleistocene has only just begun glacial cycles and the last glacial maximum. Around 115,000 years ago, Earth plunged into its final great glaciation. Ice and snow expanded from North America into Europe. Mountain passes wore white blankets, and once vibrant grasslands became frozen deserts. Across the continents, rock hardened beneath the ice, carving deep troughs and leaving behind narrow valleys and vast glacial lakes. You can almost hear the low rumble as ice slips over bedrock, the planet's heavy, breath-like exhalation. Encounters with the megafauna. In the heart of this frozen labyrinth, Europe's and North America's megafauna struggle on. Mammoths primigenius, woolly mammoth. Herds migrated for thousands of kilometres in search of dry grasslands and low-browsing shrubs. Their warm trumpeting echoes across the ice, a call to unity among kin. Megaloceros giganteus, Irish elk. With its immense sail-like antlers, it strode gracefully across the frozen steppe, carving heroic patterns in the snow. Panthera leospelaia, cave lion. Sharp claws left prints in the snow, and its deep roars reverberated through rocky cliffs, reminders of the predator's fleeting dominion. Smilodon fatalis, saber-toothed cat, ambushing prey amid drifts of snow, its elongated canine teeth curved like moonlit crescents, beautiful yet terrifying. The great human migrations. Late in the Pleistocene, early Homo sapiens embarked on epic journeys. From the Niger River basin, they crossed what was then grassland Sahara, penetrating deep into Africa's forests. Over the Strait of Gibraltar and through the Levant, they entered Europe and clashed and interbred with Neanderthals. Sparks flew from struck stones and fires glowed in rocky caves, the mingling of two human branches. In Asia, they followed prehistoric Silk Road corridors, spreading bow and arrow hunting techniques and honey-gathering skills, founding small riverside communities along the Ganges and Yellow River. The final Pleistocene transition. Approximately 14,700 years ago, the Bolling Alarud warming arrived, and ice sheets rapidly receded. Snowmelt revealed moist, fertile soil. Broadleaf forests burst with new life. The murmur of rushing water filled every valley as streams quenched the land. Dry tundra gave way to shrublands, then to great woodlands, ideal habitat for moose, deer, and forest hares. Lasting geological legacies. This transitional era left its mark. Glacial erratics, massive boulders carried by ice and abandoned randomly across plains, meltwater floods, catastrophic torrents from melting glaciers, carved deep valleys and deposited vast alluvial plains. Let the image of drifting ice, migratory mammoths, and huddles of early humans linger in your mind, a testament to life's resilience amid the Pleistocene's icy grip. The first dawn of the Quaternary, the Holocene, arrives as the last ice melts and a gentle warmth returns, ushering in the era when humanity truly masters the Earth. Let the morning mist mingle with the soft sunlight, guiding you through the brief but transformative 11,700 years of this new age. Glacial melt and sea level rise. When the North American and Eurasian ice sheets finally retreated, glacial meltwater poured into the oceans, raising sea levels by tens of meters compared to the Pleistocene. Ancient coastal bays gave way to deeper seas, forming new straits and large gulfs such as the Baltic, the North Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico. Day by day the surf grew stronger, pounding against old sedimentary shores like the overture to the Holocene. Forest expansion and grassland transformation. Former glacial margins, once snow-covered, turned into vast grasslands of tall grasses and low shrubs. Over centuries, weedy Panicoideae and Puideae grasses yielded to mixed forests. Oaks, quercus, maples, alsa, and chestnuts castanea formed cool, shaded woodlands. The songs of nightingales Licinia and redstarts Phenicurus echoed through the canopy like a gentle nocturne, lulling the new world to life. Human sedentarization and the shift from foraging to farming. The fertile river valleys, the Nile, Tigris, Euphrates, Indus, and Yellow River, became the first permanent settlements. People erected thatched huts and mud brick houses, learning to rotate wild wheat and primitive rice crops. The rustle of hoes turning warm earth, the patter of rain on irrigated fields, and the chirping of sparrows welcoming ripening grain, all combined into the soft melody of the earliest agriculture. The golden tools of the age. Late Neolithic peoples discovered early metallurgy, smelting copper in clay furnaces, forging red bronze axes and arrowheads. The repeated clang-clang of metal striking metal rang out like a metallic fanfare, announcing the Bronze Age. These sharp tools rapidly cleared land, ploughed deeper furrows, and paved the way for the first urban centres. Maritime journeys and global trade. Mastering seafaring, humans built sturdy wooden ships and set sail across the oceans. They carried seeds, textiles, and pottery beyond Arabia and the Strait of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean and Atlantic. The gentle lap of waves against hulls and the flutter of sails in the wind became the triumphant anthem of ancient merchants. The Industrial Revolution and humanity's mark. From the 18th century, steam engines and coal reshaped the planet. The hiss of boilers and the roar of gears set a mechanical rhythm. Factories rose, billowing smoke high into the sky, and for the first time humans lit oil lamps against the dark night. Rivers that once carried only silt now bore steamships, heralding the fossil fuel era. 20th centuries: the digital age and climate change. With electricity and microchips, the whisper of cooling fans and the glow of screens lit up the night, humanity connected across continents via the internet, sharing data instantly like spreading dewdrops. Yet our footprint deepened. Forests were felled, greenhouse gases climbed, and ice melt accelerated. The wind through rocky passes now carries horn honks and the hum of modern turbines, reminding us of our responsibility to protect the planet. Symphony of nature and humanity. Through all the upheavals, nature and humanity have learned to harmonise. Forests regrow through conservation, grasslands revive ecologies, and clean technologies gradually replace fossil fuels. The laughter of children on green fields, the hum of solar panels charging under open skies, and the chorus of frogs in restored wetlands all combine into a hopeful symphony for the future. As night falls, close your eyes. Let the warmth of a campfire, the cool sea breeze, and the babble of rainforest streams lull you into peaceful sleep. You have journeyed through 12 geological eras, where rock, ice, and life entwine to weave the grand story of our planet and of ourselves. Sweet dreams through the ages, awakening tomorrow with renewed faith in the days ahead.